Hello, BookTube. I went out and about this morning. I have a friend who runs a church in Boston, and I am currently involved in what's the nice way to put it? Yanking a book out of one of his parishioners. She and I have been working on it for a while, and apparently she has said nice things about me to my friend, and also, as if that weren't bad enough, in a kind of a night fork of midwifery, I'm also trying to yank and hoist and pull a book out of my friend. A Christian devotional book that I think would be much needed. And also, we wanted to compare notes on a thing that he is doing, a sort of I guess you could call it almost a paper, a thing that he's presenting in a month's time. That is, it's right up my alley. It's exactly what I like to help write. And he was saying nice things about me about that as well. He's fond of telling me, in an offhand quip, that I understand his faith better than he does. And that isn't true at all. He lives it. He lives with it. He is a leader for his congregation, for his parish. To the limited extent that there are parts of his faith that I understand better than he does, it's because it's not a faith to me. I see it from the outside and from historical context. And that can help a lot. And he's not, I don't think he's able to do that. Anyway, the long and the short of it is that we had plenty of stuff to do, and it was worth a visit. And as I mentioned on this channel before, he used to run a kind of a charity jumble sale in a part of the basement of the church. And it was done solely on donations from parishioners and their friends and whatnot. And COVID put an end to that, temporarily anyway, because a lot of his parishioners are very old. And even though he hasn't started it back up, the donations have never stopped. The donations keep coming. So boxes of books, as he puts it, get left on his back doorstep like orphans used to be left in the medieval days. And whenever I go over, especially if I'd be perfectly happy to drop some money in the collection plate, but he insists that I take whatever I want, especially if I'm helping him or helping a parishioner of his. And I also don't have to worry about lugging them because he has a young sacristan who is perfectly happy. We are now buddies, so this young assistant of his is perfectly happy to drop what he's doing, haul a box or a bag of books into the car, and drive me back to my door, and also haul them in here. So it's effort free. So that was that, and that just sweetens the pot. So I got a bunch of books that I want to show you. I don't need them at all, but they were free. They were just fill a box and then as I told his young sacristan, we'll just fill a box. You'll take your shirt off, and you'll drive me back to the house. he loves to smile about that and say, "You're kind of a perv, aren't you?" I say, "I don't know what you're talking about. You're offering it up to God." But I am also helping him figure out a course of reading that is gaining speed and momentum, it's becoming much more effective as he starts to realize the sheer size of the reading material that's out there if he wants to read on Christianity. The sheer size of history, the sheer size of exegesis and commentary, it's vast. It helps if you have a guide. And you might think, well, surely his boss, my friend, would be a good guide, but my friend would be the first to admit I've read 10 times more of that stuff than he has, or than he was ever made to do in seminary or anywhere else. So I'm happy to help out, and I got a stack of books. Now, I don't need these. They were a fringe benefit of a visit. That basement could have been empty, and I would still have been happy to spend the time. So let's look at what we've got. The first one is pure BookTube serendipity. The BookTube gods just paying attention to what's coming in front of me. I have a book club on this channel. All the cool channels do. The Steve Tiberius Donahue Book Club. And we're about to wrap up April. In April, we did SPQR by Mary Beard. And in May, we're doing One Art, Robert Giroux's collection of the letters of Elizabeth Bishop. And I imagine that in the course of the month, we will also be dealing with Elizabeth Bishop, with her poetry, which is the whole reason why you would justify a letter collection. Although the letter collection is great on its own, I'm happy to know that a lot of you are getting a copy. You're going to love it, especially if, or, even if you're not really familiar with reading letter collections. I know that they're sort of gone out of fashion, and in another generation, they won't exist at all. Of course, there's not going to be any such thing as an email collection. So it takes a little bit of getting used to, and it entirely depends on how well curated the collection is. Fortunately, that letter collection, One Art, is brilliantly done. But pretty much one of the first things that I saw in the sloping piles of books was this. Meghan Marshall's biography of Elizabeth Bishop, A Miracle for Breakfast, that has wonderful blurbs on it, including a wonderful blurb from the Christian Science Monitor. This is a terrific biography. I haven't had it since I got it from the publisher. This thing came out in when did you come out? 2017. So I'm sure that once I'm done wrapping up April and I'm diving into May, once I'm diving into Elizabeth Bishop's work and life and letters, I'm sure that I would have wanted this. It's just a sort of ancillary reading that I would want. So it's just a pure booktube coincidence that I saw it. Same thing with this next one. The other day we got a copy of Speech Team by Tim Murphy, the author Tim Murphy. And I got that book. I showed you about it on a mail haul. I think it was a mail haul. And the whole time that I was talking about it with you, I was thinking about, the book that the pub sheet for Speech Team touted was Krista Dore. But I kept thinking of a much earlier book from the 90s by Tim Murphy, a gay novel. Got to have something for the gays. And I found it today. It's this. It's Getting Off Clean, where a relatively naive young boy from the suburbs of Boston falls in love and in lust with an extremely arch and sophisticated young black man. And it's really intelligently done. I remember reading this in the late 1990s and really enjoying it and wondering, will I see that again? I would definitely read that again. This was a Stonewall edition. They had a long list of books in the Stonewall edition. And there it was today. So perfect. I will read this before I read Speech Team. Then we have some epic science fiction and fantasy. Didn't go in with any agenda, of course. I didn't have any agenda. I was mainly thinking about helping people out, about helping with writing projects. I wasn't really thinking about the books. I couldn't have looked at all the boxes. There's just no way. I had to get back to the bean. I was feeling a little peaked myself. But I found some gigantic little vein here of fantasy and science fiction. First, science fiction, post-apocalyptic, dystopian science fiction. This is Wraithu by Storm Constantine. And this is 3 books from the 90s, I believe. Are these also from the 90s? The late 80s and 90s. The 3 books are The Enchantments of Flesh and Spirit, The Bewitchments of Love and Hate, and The Fulfillments of Fate and Desire. And I had all 3 of those in mass market paperback. Same artist, but different covers. That was the cover of one of them. This was the cover of another. I had all of those mass market paperbacks, and then the trade paperback came out, and I really liked the look of it. So I got the trade paperback as well, eons ago, and it's long since gone. Now I have it again. I remember when I was reading these, they're set in a future Earth in which a new kind of human is taking over. The Wraithu are taking over, and their gender dimorphism is very different from humans, and they also have vaguely telekinetic superpowers. So they're not just arriving, they're not just appearing and maybe meeting or interbreeding voluntarily or otherwise with humans, but also it's pretty firmly established even in the first book that they are supplanting Homo sapiens in some sort of survival of the fittest evolutionary struggle. But there's a lot more going on here too. There's one particular main character whose adventures run throughout all 3 of the books, and there's all sorts of mind-blowing concepts. It's also very well written. But I remember I read all 3 books, and then I read them again 30 years ago when I got this trade paperback. And I really liked it, but there was an element to it that I couldn't quite put my finger on. I couldn't quite identify what it was. The breathless, fervid, very reductive, almost feverish element that was definitely passionate, definitely made it an easy page-turning read, but that was also a little bit dumb. And it was only looking at this thing now that I realized what that element was. It's plainly signaled in the titles of the individual books. The enchantments of flesh and spirit, the bewitchments of love and hate, the fulfillments of fate and desire, the X of Y and Z, preposition fiction. That's YA. That's the element that it didn't properly exist in the late 1990s. That's the element that I hadn't identified, is that this is YA. No matter how it's marketed by Orbit, no matter what it, or who does this? Yeah, Orb. No matter who does this, reading it again, I will make time for this. I'll reread this summer. It's certainly good enough. I will keep that in mind. Now, I will keep that in mind. That is a dead giveaway. The X of Y and Z is a dead giveaway now. So, I didn't quite put my finger on that last time, and I wonder if that'll change the reading experience. And then we have standard epic fantasy. So world building, 2 down on their luck, sell swords of the Farford and Grey Mouser mold, who take on an adventure. The adventure becomes much more important than anyone knows. The deal that they were just going to do is one more job to get in, get out, nobody gets hurt, we get paid, suddenly takes on cosmic supernatural significance. A very well-trod kind of plot in epic fantasy. But these have always attracted me. I read part of one when they first came out in, I want to say, the early 2000s. When did Volume 1 come out? Let's see if I'm right about that. When did Volume 1 come out? Oh no, well, 2011, so not the early 2000s. And it's this. It's Michael J. Sullivan. This is The Theft of Swords. This is Volume 1. This is the Reria Revelations. And those are our 2 main characters, whose names are Royce Melbourne and Hadrian Blackwater. So, not a whole lot of effort being done here to be extra creative. But I always see one volume of these, or maybe another volume of these, but never all of them together. I have e-copies of all of these, but there's something about a big fat fantasy series that feels better when it's done in paperback. And I found somebody must have dumped all 3 of them at the same time. So I found Theft of Swords. I found Rise of Empire. There are our 2 main characters again. And then finally, Heir of Novron, which is Volume 3. There again are our Farford and Mouser Grey main characters there, an idealistic swordsman and a thief. So I found all 3 of these, and that's not something that's happened in the years that I've been looking, much less all 3 of them for free, being brought into my own house by a pair of bulging biceps. That's all. Definitely win-win. Then this is another thing. These are rather egregious examples here, because in the case of the Michael J. Sullivan's a little bit of an odd case for an author. His credit with the Bank of Steve goes up and down, up and down. I never know quite where I stand with him. Some books seem to work, others really don't. So it was a little bit odd to get these 3 paperbacks when I have the ebooks of a series that could easily end up disappointing me, given the author. But the same thing is true of this next one. I have a hardcover of it that one of you was kind enough to send. I have an ebook, but I got this anyway. It's a UK trade paperback from Favor and Favor, and I really, really enjoy those. This is P.D. James, Death and Holy Orders, and this is just, I love something about the UK trade paperbacks. I just love. So I grab them when I find them, and this was right there. What have we got here? Set at an Anglican theological college on a desolate stretch of the East Anglian coast, a locality which the author has made particularly her own. When the body of one of the students is found on the shore, smothered by a fall of sand, his wealthy father demands that Scotland Yard should investigate the verdict of accidental death. And I remember really, really liking this book. I think I've only read this the one time. I think I read it when it first came out in 2001, thereabouts. So it'll be, I'm sure there'll be elements of it that will feel new. I remember that first time thinking that the ending sort of crapped out, which P.D. James usually reliably does not do that. We shall see. We shall see. Definitely on the agenda for the summer. And then finally, this big thing, the last book here. This is by Sandra Gilbert and Susan Gubar. It is absolutely famous, iconic even. I read it when it first appeared a long time ago, 40 years ago, and have always been meaning to reread it because I really enjoyed it. This is their classic book, The Mad Woman in the Attic, study of 19th century women writers. That is, I mean, it was originated as lectures in a feminism course, and definitely has that as a feeling, as a topspin to everything going on in the book. But it's also terrific. It's also just terrifically energetic readings of, the Bronte sisters or Jane Austen or whoever. Really energetic readings. The Bronte sisters part especially, I think, is just virtuoso. So I haven't read this again in forever. Don't have an e-copy of it, so I was happy to grab it. No libraries really, if you like lit studies, if you like to read energetic readings of canonical works, you're not really complete without The Mad Woman in the Attic. It sort of set the tone for a whole generation of other critical works. So I found this. I found the Rereria Revelations. I found the Wraithu anthology by Storm Constantine. No idea if Storm Constantine is still alive, still writing. I really much don't think that there are any more Wraithu books. Then Death and Holy Orders in a nice Faber and Faber UK trade paperback. We got Getting Off Clean by Tim Murphy. And also A Miracle for Breakfast, the latest biography of Elizabeth Bishop. So fantastic. A nice collection of books. I could have taken a little more time, gotten a lot more, but I really don't need to just max out on books. I really don't need to do that. And that's it as far as books go. But there's a twist. There's a sudden plot twist in this book haul. Because some of you will remember that the last time I was there visiting my friend in his donation-filled basement, he pointed out that books aren't the only thing he gets. He gets everything, including shoulder bags. Now, we have been engaged in a bag saga on this channel. I say we because I'm the only one paying attention. That started with Bill Rutenberg, who did an innocent video where he takes us through his travel bag. Just shows us his travel bag. Wasn't book related at all, except that when bookworms show you any kind of a bag, they are showing you the allowances that bag will make for an unreasonable amount of books, even in the age of the Kindle. And then other people took off on that. Hannah at Hannah's Books did a couple of bag videos. Aaron Facer did a couple of bag videos and also dubbed this whole torturous phenomenon Bag Tuesday. And one of you, I found a bag. Last time I was at this friend's place, I found a shoulder bag, a leather shoulder bag, that had problems, but I don't look anymore for whether or not a leather shoulder bag will be perfect. I look for whether or not it has the raw bones, the basic architecture. Then I will take a knife and a pair of scissors and I will fix it to what I want. I have basic parameters for a bag that I know what I want, and I'm not willing to put up with the manufacturer's design if it's not what I want, especially if the bag is free, right? So that, and I thought exactly that about the bag that I found at this basement last time. So I Frankensteined it, and I made it into a very, very useful bag, and I documented the whole process on this channel. And then one of you sent me an unbelievably beautiful leather bag. I showed it on last Bag Tuesday. An unbelievably beautiful thing. It's just a work of art, but not very expandable. I felt like a prince when I was walking around with it. But when I'm walking around, I'm filling a shoulder bag with books. I'm filling it with books or packages going to the post office to be mailed. It's got to hold a lot. And that brand new, beautiful leather shoulder bag holds even less than the one I Frankenstein. So I still want to use it for times when I go to meetings or things like that, where I'm not concerned with lugging 50 pounds of books. But even so, I commented last Bag Tuesday that the bag saga probably continues. And it continued today. I found another bag. And it's a pretty amazing thing to get for free. It's this. It's a leather shoulder bag. It is really, really solidly made. And it invites Frankenstein. So I thought I haven't looked at it. I told the sacristan to just throw it in the car and then throw it on the couch. I haven't examined it. We're going to examine it together and see how close or how far it is from a perfect bag. So let's see what we've got here. First of all, extremely thick, heavy leather. Much heavier than the bag I got at the church last time. A handle like a briefcase, but bolted on there. There's no way that I could Frankenstein this off. This isn't sewn on there. It's bolted on. And it's really, really solid. So, you know, it's not getting in my way. Maybe I want it there. I certainly can't get rid of it. What have we got on the back here? The dorsal package here. Oh, what an interesting arrangement. Oh, how interesting. Okay, we have openings in the back. We have but a zippered opening here where you can put stuff. But very interesting here. What an odd arrangement. Is this a mistake? No, it's sewn this way. What an odd arrangement. There is a pouch in here that the zipper opens for. But it's located in a band of leather of its own that is sewn onto the inside of the bag and does not have a bottom. Do you know what I'm talking about here? I put my hand in there, it comes out the bottom. the outside pouch is sewn onto this flap as opposed to being sewn onto the bag. What an odd approach. I wonder why that is. Could it be that it's separate like this because it's designed to help the bag expand? One of the things I noticed about it right away is that it is very wide. Ooh, look at that. Look at that. That's one of the that's part of the ribbing that goes along the whole edge of the bag, and that's metal. Wow. Not hurting the structural integrity of the bag at all. It's just broken free of the leather, but it's not a hole. Now this is going to expand a lot. This is going to fit a lot more stuff. That's very interesting, that back thing there, though. It's just loose from the bag. It is a pocket, but sort of separate, hanging on its own. All right, well, so that's the back, and here's the top. We've got a handle like a briefcase. And what about the sides? Okay, the shoulder strap has one of these pads that I usually don't like because they're usually sliding all over the place, so they're never where you want it to be. But this one, the big fancy leather bag, is bolted in place. So that's always going to be where I want. That is exactly what I want. Interesting. Nice heavy metal fixture here. The strap, the strap anchor, which is the key weakness of any shoulder bag here, is not only sewn. This flap doesn't move. It's sewn onto the leather, but also bolted. And notice the flap that it's sewn onto extends all the way around the bag underneath that sheathing, all the way around to the other side, which is very good and usually doesn't happen. Usually this is the weak spot of a bag because it's just a patch of cloth that's sewn on. That was what started this whole bag saga of mine in the first place, is that the canvas bag that I was originally using, that patch that was the only thing holding it onto the bag was starting to wear out, starting to pull away from the body of the bag. That won't happen. That absolutely won't happen. This could take a huge amount of, this will never go. Because the key thing is that's distributing the force of pulling on your shoulder. The more of this there is and the better anchored it is, the more it's going to last. Fantastic. Okay, and then the front. What have we got for the front? All right, so one little structural weakness is that the handle is attached to the flap as opposed to attached to the body of the bag. So the handle is going to become less and less useful the more full the bag is and the more this is resting on contents instead of covering them. But this is still fairly heavy. This is heavy leather. Very nice. And this will cover the inside of the bag. So let's take a look at the inside. What have we got here? Oh, okay. All right, well, the inside has a back zippered compartment. Let's see if we can make sure you see that. There's a back zippered compartment there. That's good. That's nice and secure. And the inside is fairly big. I can't tell just on a first examination if there's padding in here. I think there is no tolerance for padding, but this is really well put together. Really, really well put together. Look at this internal working here. Look at how solid that is. That's fantastic. But one thing definitely has to be Frankenstein. This has a cardboard divider in here. This isn't even cloth. Hear that? It's just cardboard. That's got to go. That absolutely has to go. And I don't know how that's going to work because this is really solid. I think ordinarily the approach that I take would be to evulse the bag. It would be to pull the bag inside out so that I have access to all the stitch work on the inside and can make a neat little incision to pull apart anything that I want. But we already saw that's not going to be possible with this bag because the framing is metal. This is a cord, a hard metal cord. It's not sewn. There's metal to keep the framing in here, which means I won't be able to turn this inside out. But this thing has to go. That absolutely has to go. It's okay with me that this zippered compartment is here because if it's zippered, it won't get in my way. But this thing is just splitting the inside of the bag, and that can't be. And if that were gone, the inside of this bag would be immense. That's really tempting. Okay, well, I can't get at the stitching on this internal thing at all. I'm just going to have to cut it. I'm just going to have to, and that's really tricky because you're cutting all the way down to the darkness at the bottom of the bag. When you don't have a sense of touch and you use something really sharp, that can be really tricky. But there's no way for me to get this out of the inside of the bag. I'm going to have to just cut it out of there. It's a little bit messy. I don't know if you can make this out, but it's sewn right into the side of the bag. There's no gentle way to detach that. There's no real way to do that. I would be really hurting the stitching. And I don't want to do that. Unless this whole outside thing is not part of the wall of the bag. I don't know if that makes any sense. If this thing right here is the thing that is actually holding the internal divider in place, is this sort of raised seam here. If this has stitchwork on either side and stitching across the top, if this thing is sewn onto a solid piece of leather that goes across the side, then it can be pulled off. And that would make the removal of the interior barrier very easy. But I won't know that unless I try, and I could ruin it in doing that. Probably just easier to cut, to leave that there and cut this out as much as possible. Cut it right sheer to the side. That's probably the easiest thing to do. And that appears to be the only Frankensteining that I would be able to do with this thing. This has two separate outside pockets. That's very, very good. Much better than if this is all one pocket. And these things have little dividers of their own. Little compartments for pens or, change or whatnot. They're... a little thing. There's a little pocket on the other side for a cell phone, I guess, or something like that. I would never use anything like that, but there's no reason to remove them. They're fine. I don't know. I think this has lots of potential. Lots of it. I will Frankenstein that middle partition out of there, but it could be that this is a contender. This is a really, really solid thing. So, and notice these things here. These little folds here are designed to expand this thing if you stuff it full of stuff. The really fancy leather bag had the same thing. It just doesn't expand enough. That's all. Very, very interesting. I have a whole bunch of work to do today. A couple of pieces of it that are unexpected. But in the meantime, to amuse myself, I am going to... The only thing I need to do with this one to start with is take that interior partition out. That it has to go. That I know for sure. One of the key brotivational lessons that you want from Frankensteining a bag is don't make any permanent decisions unless you're 100% sure. And I know I don't want an internal partition, so I'm 100% sure of that. Any of the rest of this, I don't know. But that I know. So that at least I will do, and maybe that's all I have to do. And then I will field test this in my next outdoor errands and tell you all about it. I'm thinking Just off the top of my head, I'm thinking that this is the weirdest feature. This outside flap that has no bottom. It's just a patch of leather that does have a pocket sewn into it, but it seems like just an invitation to open this just a little, the top of this, and think, just mindlessly, reflexively think, oh yeah, I better drop my change in there. It's gonna go right out the bottom. No, you have to unzipper this to get to the part that has a bottom, and I don't know how intuitive that will be. But that definitely can't come off, and I wouldn't want it to anyway. You want a pocket on the inside of where this thing is pressed against your body. But anyway, I wanted to show you that as well. Got another bag contender, a very heavy, very nicely made thing that I will put my hands on it today and see how it goes. But I won't be using it again until next week. So there'll be a field test before Bag Tuesday, and then I will report. Anyway, I'm going to wrap this up, books, bag, and all, and I will see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.